Hi, my name is Harrison Taylor, and this is my EDL 854 Module 11 Gifts to Students and Staff presentation. First of all, gifts to students, these can only be paid with activity funds. It is only appropriate when it is used as incentives for fundraising events or as awards for special achievement. Okay, fundraising incentive gifts. So for incentives, which is something that my school's looking into doing more of lately, it's really only to give into students who participated in fundraising. So they've got to be doing the fundraising to receive an incentive based off of that. The prize needs to be age appropriate and not affect profitability. So obviously you wouldn't give too much money to a young student, and you can't give out bicycles or really big items that would make this fundraiser no longer make money. And then the incentives should be used with the funds that have been raised by that group. So you can't really mix and match funds and who's raising it and the incentives. It should all be contained with the groups raising the money. And then gifts that are not related to fundraising should not benefit one group over another. So can't have everybody raising money and giving some gifts to one, not to others, and it's just got to really be even. So special achievement gifts, which would be like athletic events, maybe high achievements in bands or whatever, extracurriculars. They need to be smaller amounts for the gift, as far as the value, and also age appropriate again. The funding can come from the general fund, donations from businesses or parent groups, or if it's sports awards specifically and then there's an athletic fund, they could pull from that. Okay, gifts to staff members. And this, you have to be careful with this because if you give, a monetary amount, that really should be taxed, and that can be seen as wages and things like that. So you need to have procedures, and then you need to have committees that keep track of this stuff. They need to meet at least once a year to review the guidelines and make sure, if all the staff is donating like a certain amount of money at the beginning of the year, that they make sure that amount is appropriate. And then there's also special occasion gifts. This could be like, positive things, birthdays or celebrations, and maybe new babies or something that a teacher may have, or, for funerals or just, things that come up. So they need to be reasonably priced and used with the staff funds for this type of thing. Okay, most staffs, they do have a fund that they keep track of this. Maybe everybody donates $10 at the start of the year, then they have this fund to pull from throughout the year. And then this needs to come from the staff and definitely not from any student funds. Student funds need to be used for students. Also, this group needs to have a committee to manage this fund that the staff has created. There need to be procedures. There need to be limits on gifts and what type of gifts. Obviously, make sure it's fair and things aren't getting out of hand. And then also that membership in the committee needs to rotate. So it's not the same people that control this committee all the time. And then also incentive for staff can be okay. So if a staff member is working to raise funds for the staff, then an incentive gift would be fine for them. But it shouldn't be any more than 5% of the total profit. So that incentive piece really shouldn't tap in hardly at all to the profit margin. And then gifts for the whole staff, a lot of times that'll happen in the beginning of the year, welcoming everybody to the new year or whatever. But that should be pretty minimal as far as cost, and should be used staff funds or donated funds set aside for this purchase. Could be PTO or whatever. And usually if the staff raises the money, then it's appropriate to use for the staff. So you need to make sure you differentiate that. And then districts, they can allow for incentives gifts used from the general fund, but they need to be inexpensive and useful in the classroom. So maybe everybody gets, some utensils or something to use in class as a gift, and should be limited because the general fund is usually supposed to directly benefit students. And then you need to stay away from cash or check because that would be shown as a wage, You could get into some gray areas as far as hiding, um, paying employees and things like that, and all that needs to be reported on W-2 for tax purposes. Special efforts for specific students or staff members is a lot of times emergencies, people are sick or family member dies. Um, should be rare. Um, these can get tricky at times, so make sure you're seeking the accounting um, advice of that department in your district to make sure everything's good. And any cash amount given to that person, if it's an employee, is still taxable by the IRS and needs to be reported. So that's really important. Even if it's really good cause, person lost, their home or whatever, you still have to report that. Um, and then a lot of times the best way to do this is through a parent organization and use a separate bank to handle the funds of that and keep the school and the bookkeeping out of it. That makes it a lot cleaner and a lot easier to manage. And then here are my references. Obviously, these types of things can be positive. You just have to make sure you're following the procedures and doing everything correctly to make sure it all goes well.